started like a joke over takeout. "What if we open the relationship?" he said between bites of chicken pad thai. I laughed. A short, awkward burst that felt like the polite thing to do. But Ellis didn't laugh. He kept chewing, his eyes locked on the TV, and my heart dropped somewhere under the coffee table. I was still holding my chopsticks when he said, "I'm serious." I remember blinking at him, unsure if I'd misheard. "Serious how?" He shrugged, that irritating little shrug that always made me feel like I was overreacting, even when I wasn't. "I don't know. Just to see other people. Spice things up. We're kind of flatlining, aren't we?" My mouth went dry. I'd been thinking the same thing, just not out loud. Not with him. Not like this. Flatlining. God, was that what we were now? A flatline? We'd been together 4 years. For whole years. Which, in gay time, is basically a silver anniversary. We'd met at a gallery opening in Hackney. He liked the colors, I liked the chaos. He was wearing this ridiculous turtleneck and kept correcting the artist's statement to strangers. I called him pretentious. He called me dramatic. And then we kissed under a flickering bathroom light while our friends waited outside. I thought we were magic. Maybe not the kind that lasts forever, but at least the kind you don't let go of easily. So no, I wasn't expecting him to suggest sleeping with other people while we were still halfway through dinner. I tried to sound casual. "So, like a threesome?" He shook his head. "Not necessarily. More like freedom. To do what we want. With rules, obviously. Boundaries. Like Monopoly?" I said, more bitterly than I meant to. He looked at me then. Really looked. "Cass, come on. You can't say you haven't felt it too. The disconnect. We haven't had sex in what, 3 weeks? 4, I said quietly. He exhaled. Like that confirmed something tragic. I should have said no. I should have told him I wanted to work on us, not add strangers into the mix like new spices in an already bland soup. But instead, I said, "Okay," 'cause deep down I was terrified. Not of the sex, of the silence, of what would happen if I didn't say yes. And maybe, stupidly, I thought agreeing would mean I loved him harder. That I was brave. That I was the kind of person who could bend and stretch and be cool with it. "Okay," I repeated, smiling like I meant it. He grinned and leaned over to kiss me, pad thai still steaming between us. "I love you, you know," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, I know." But I didn't say it back. Not because I didn't mean it, but because, for the first time, I wasn't sure how much it still mattered. That night, we made a list of rules. No staying the night. No repeats. No catching feelings. Always be honest. Felt sterile, almost clinical. Like we were drafting a business contract, not rearranging the architecture of our relationship. I lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling while Ellis showered. I could hear the water running, could imagine him standing under it with his eyes closed, picturing someone else. Someone new. Someone exciting. And I wondered when I had stopped being that person for him. Or if I ever really was. I told myself I could do this. That it didn't have to mean anything. But even then, before the apps, the texts, the whispered lies, I felt something crack. And once it cracked, it didn't stop. Then I met the man who would change everything. His name was Aurelian. Yes, like the Roman emperor. He told me that the first night, bare-chested under a smoky blue light in some dim little bar off Old Street, like it was supposed to mean something. Maybe it did. He had green eyes, distractingly so. Not just the kind you mention and move on from. The kind that feel like they're watching you even when you look away. Predatory in a way that felt flattering. I told myself he was just an experiment. That's what Ellis and I agreed on, wasn't it? Try something new. Play outside the lines. I was just following the rules. Mostly. But with Aurelian, it was never just sex. Not even the first time. I met him on a Thursday night. By Saturday, I was texting him like a teenager, waiting too long to reply, rewriting messages to sound breezy, pretending I didn't care as much as I did. The first time we slept together, he called me beautiful. After, not hot, not good, not fun. Beautiful. And it broke me open in a way that scared me. Ellis never called me that. Not once. Not even in the beginning when we were still kissing like we meant it. Ellis called me talented. Smart. Once. After I directed a difficult play that nearly gave me ulcers, he said, "You're good at pushing through, but never beautiful." With Aurelian, it wasn't just the sex, it was how he saw me. Or maybe how I wanted to be seen. He asked questions. Deep ones. Ones Ellis used to ask in the first year, before our lives blurred into shared calendars and quiet dinners. Why theater? What broke you before I met you? Do you think you're actually happy? No one asks you things like that unless they're digging. And no one digs unless they're planning to stay. I told Ellis I was going to the gym, or out for drinks with people he didn't know. Harmless, vague things that didn't make him look up from his laptop. I should have felt guilt. Maybe I did. But it was buried beneath something warmer. Something sweeter. Something dangerously close to joy. Aurelian smelled like cedar and cinnamon. He used expensive words and kept his flat like a gallery, perfectly curated and cold in a way that made me feel delicate just standing there. He played Nina Simone on vinyl and always cooked too much food. Like he expected me to stay longer than I said I would. I never told Ellis any of this. I never told him Aurelian started calling me Cass in a voice that made it sound like poetry. Or that the second time we met I cried. Not because of anything he did, but because he listened. "Does your boyfriend know you're this lonely?" Aurelian asked once, brushing his fingers through my hair as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't answer. Instead, I kissed him, long and hard and with the hunger of someone trying to forget. I told myself I was just catching up on something I'd been missing. But it felt a lot like falling. And the worst part? I didn't want to come back. Though Ellis created a set of rules to guide the open relationship. I knew I would break all of them. No overnights. No repeated hookups. No catching feelings. There were 3 rules. Simple. Reasonable. Ellis wrote them in the Notes app on his phone while I watched from across the kitchen island, half drunk on wine and fear. We'd agreed. We'd shaken on it. Like businessmen shaking hands over something they both knew would fall apart. I broke all 3 before the end of the first month. The worst part? He didn't even notice. The first overnight with Aurelian was an accident. At least that's what I told myself. I come over late, just to talk, I'd said. But we didn't just talk. And after, wrapped in his sheets that smelled like bergamot and something heartbreakingly clean, I couldn't bring myself to leave. I woke up beside him to sunlight pouring through his windows like grace. He had freckles I hadn't noticed before, soft ones dusting his shoulders. I remember tracing them with my eyes and thinking, Ellis never lets me see him like this. Rule 1, shattered. The second time with Aurelian was the very next weekend. I told Ellis I had a meeting with a potential actor for an upcoming play. He didn't even look up, just nodded and muttered, "Good luck." I didn't even know if he heard me shut the door. The third time wasn't sex at all. It was tea. Aurelian bought me chamomile because he remembered I said I hadn't been sleeping well. He poured it into a chipped ceramic mug and told me, "You don't have to keep pretending around me." I didn't know I'd been pretending until he said it. Rule 2 ruined. The feelings crept in like fog, slow, silent, and impossible to push away once it settled. I started to see pieces of Aurelian in things that had nothing to do with him. Green scarves in shop windows. Nina Simone songs in coffee shops. The way I started to hesitate before coming home to Ellis. Like I was walking into someone else's life. Ellis didn't ask questions, didn't pry, didn't see. He still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still asked how rehearsal went. But he did it the way people ask cashiers how they are, out of habit, not care. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't distant in a sharp or punishing way. He was just gone, checked out, smiling through it. I started wondering if he'd already broken the rules too. Maybe he was out there falling into someone else, and I just hadn't noticed either. Maybe we were both pretending. One night, Ellis came to bed early, slipped under the duvet without saying much. His arm brushed mine, and it felt foreign, like bumping into someone you once knew on a crowded street. He reached for me, tentative. I let him. We got intimate. The polite kind. The kind we always joked about becoming. I stared at the ceiling the whole time. Afterward, he rolled away and said, "Thanks, thanks," like I'd handed him a napkin. I turned on my side, facing away from him. And for the first time in 4 years, I realized I didn't love him the way I used to. Maybe I still loved who he had been, or maybe I just missed the version of me that loved him. Aurelian texted me that night. "You seemed far away today. I missed you." I didn't reply, but I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering. 3 rules. I broke them all. And Ellis didn't even ask me why I stopped looking him in the eye. Days after, he came home from Berlin smelling like someone else. Not cologne. Not laundry soap. Not even sweat. It was muskier, unfamiliar, like citrus and skin and something faintly metallic, like keys left too long in a warm pocket. I noticed the second he walked through the door. He dropped his bag by the radiator like always, kicked off his trainers, pulled me into a hug that felt like protocol, like a checkbox ticked. I leaned in, my nose brushing the collar of his shirt. I felt it, that catch in my chest. The scent didn't belong to him. I said nothing. He offered nothing. Not even a lie. "How was Berlin?" I asked, and it came out too soft, like I was afraid of the answer. Ellis shrugged. Long meetings were chaotic. I barely slept. He walked past me into the kitchen. I watched the muscles in his back shift under his shirt as he opened the fridge, then closed it again without taking anything. He didn't look at me. Not really. I stared at his neck, at the back of his head, and felt something sharp and sad begin to bloom in my chest. He was tired. He was quiet. But he wasn't sorry. That night we ate dinner in silence. Leftover pasta. No wine. No music. Just the sound of forks scraping against ceramic. The kitchen light buzzed faintly overhead, and I focused on that hum so I wouldn't look at him too long. For the first time in 4 years, I realized we were both pretending this was still love. We used to argue. We used to fight. Passionately. Loudly. Ugly sometimes, but it meant we still cared enough to push back. Now we were just quiet. Still together, technically. But not really. We had become 2 strangers walking in circles around a memory. That night, I lay in bed beside him and imagined Aurelian's fingers tracing the curve of my shoulder. The way he would press his forehead to mine after sex and whisper things I was too scared to repeat. I imagined being wanted. Ellis snored softly beside me. I watched him, blinking slowly in the dark, and wondered who had touched him in Berlin. What he looked like with his mouth on someone else's skin. Whether he whispered thanks to him too. I wasn't angry. I was numb. There was no betrayal because there was no intimacy left to betray. Just 2 tired men playing house, each quietly slipping away into someone else's arms. I used to love him like breathing, effortless, necessary. Now, I held my breath when he touched me. Now, I counted the hours until I could disappear again, into Aurelian, into someone who saw me as more than a flat line on the heart monitor of our dying relationship. And the terrifying thing? Ellis didn't even notice I was already gone. But with Aurelius, I knew something was about to change. It wasn't about sex anymore. Not really. Not after that night in Aurelian's kitchen, when he made me garlic rice and ginger chicken at midnight, barefoot, in those ridiculous navy pajamas with tiny white stars. The kitchen light was warm, too yellow, and the radio hummed some jazz number I didn't know. He hummed with it. I sat on the counter, legs dangling like a kid, sipping red wine out of a chipped mug because he didn't care for stemware. It feels pretentious, he'd said. I liked that about him. He wasn't trying to impress me. He was just there, present. I hadn't realized how long it had been since someone looked at me while I was speaking. Not through me. At me. He told me about his mother that night. Her hands, the way she rolled her sleeves before cooking. How she always made too much soup. How she died suddenly. A heart attack in the kitchen. The soup still boiling on the stove. He smiled when he said it. Not because it was funny, but because pain had become familiar. Like an old friend you don't love but know how to live with. I reached out, touched his cheek. He leaned into it like a reflex. No hesitation. Ellis hadn't touched my face in over a year. The ginger chicken was too spicy. I coughed, and he laughed, took my mug and gave me water instead. His fingers brushed mine and I felt it. How careful he was. Like I was something breakable. Like I hadn't already shattered and glued myself back together, jagged and wrong. Later, in his bed, I cried. Not loud. Not messy. Just soft tears, running down the side of my face while he held me like it wasn't strange. "What is it?" he asked, fingers drawing circles on my back. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was Cashin Roan, stage director, sharp-tongued, self-contained. I was supposed to know my lines, know the blocking, know how this scene would end. But Aurelian wasn't part of the script. He was the wrong cue, the forgotten character who steals the spotlight. And Ellis, he had become a ghost I slept beside. A habit I wore like a threadbare jumper, comfortable, familiar, no longer warm. "I don't think I'm the person I thought I was," I whispered. Aurelian kissed the top of my head. "None of us are." He didn't ask for more, didn't press, just held me like I wasn't a problem to solve. And for a moment, just one suspended, breathless moment, I thought maybe love didn't have to be a transaction. Maybe it could just be a place, a quiet one, with rice and jazz and someone who doesn't flinch when you fall apart. Ellis and I had a calendar to track our other dates, a digital one, color-coded and discreet. Muted greens for me, cool blues for Ellis. The idea was transparency, safety. If you were meeting someone, you'd mark it. No surprises, no overlaps, no silent suspicions. It worked for a while, until it didn't. The first time I moved a date with Aurelian, it was because I felt guilty. Ellis had come home with flowers that night. I didn't know why. No birthday, no anniversary, just flowers in a vase we barely used, drooping by morning. I moved the calendar event from Wednesday to Friday and told Aurelian I had to work late. He said okay. He always said okay. The second time, I moved the date while I was already with him. Laying on his chest, staring at his ceiling fan spinning like the inside of my head. I didn't even think about it. Just tapped, rescheduled, and went back to pretending I was still in control. Then I stopped updating the calendar altogether. Weeks passed. Aurelian became a secret I didn't guard, just lived with. Like a crack in a teacup no one notices until the liquid starts leaking out. Ellis asked me about him one night. We were brushing our teeth like any couple. Mirror, 2 sinks. That quiet, foamy silence between us. He rinsed, spat, and asked, "Are you still sleeping with him?" I blinked at the mirror, toothbrush still in my mouth. My throat dried instantly. I turned to look at him, and he wasn't even facing me. just drying his mouth like he'd asked if we were out of milk. I swallowed. No, that was the lie. Not the worst one, but the loudest, because it didn't come from panic or fear. Came from grief. I said no, and the room shifted. He looked at me then, just for a second, and nodded. Not like he believed me, not like he cared. Just nodded like someone who'd already started packing up emotionally. Like someone too tired to fight for a truth that wouldn't save anything. I slept badly that night. Not because I'd lied. I'd done worse by now. But because in that moment, I knew I had already lost him. Not because he left. Not because I did. But because somewhere between the calendars and rules and careful compromises, we had both built an agreement in place of a relationship. And I had broken it. With my heart. With my body. With my silence. I stared at the ceiling until morning, waiting for guilt to come. Didn't. Only sadness. Deep. Bone heavy. The kind you carry in your spine. One night we had a party. The night smelled like burnt rosemary and cheap white wine. We had 6 people over. The apartment was too small for 8. But we did it anyway. Ellis said it would feel cozy. Cozy's just code for pretending not to notice how tense the air gets when people sit too close to lies. We made pasta. I made the sauce from scratch, which Ellis used to say he loved. He didn't compliment it this time. He passed the bowl like he was handing out flyers on a train. Our friends laughed too loud. The music was too low. Someone brought homemade brownies. Someone spilled wine. It all blurred. But not him. Ellis was clear, crisp, like a photo that didn't belong in this album. He leaned too close to Jordan, one of the guys from his gym. He touched his arm when he laughed. Laughed in a way I hadn't heard in months. Open, young, bright around the edges. I told myself it was fine. We were open. This was what I agreed to. But every part of me was screaming. Not in front of me. Not like this. I refilled my glass twice in 10 minutes. Jordan said something about hiking. Ellis responded like they had an inside joke. They laughed again. And I realized I didn't know when Ellis had become someone with other inside jokes. I excused myself after dessert. The bathroom light was too harsh. I sat on the closed toilet lid and tried not to breathe too loud. Like the sound of my hurt would be a disruption to the curated joy happening down the hall. I didn't sob. I just leaked. Silently. Like grief was something my body was sweating out. I pressed the towel to my face. It didn't help. It hit me then. Not like a slap, but like a knife laid gently across my chest. Ellis didn't see me as his anymore. I had become familiar furniture. Fixture. A background hum. Not a partner. Not even a person to protect. Just the man who knew the Wi-Fi password and which drawer the wine opener lived in. I stayed in the bathroom long enough that someone knocked. I flushed the toilet to pretend I'd needed to be there, then stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. I washed my face and smiled once, just to see if I still could. It looked awful. Like a mask made of sadness and theater training. When I returned, no one noticed. Ellis was in the kitchen now, helping Jordan find Tupperware for leftovers. I said I was tired. People hugged me goodbye with wine-warm affection. Ellis smiled like we hadn't just rewritten everything we ever were into something stranger and colder. Later, in bed, he didn't touch me. I didn't reach out. The distance between us felt like a country I no longer had a passport for, and I knew I had to tell him the truth. Came out one day, though I didn't plan it. It wasn't some noble decision, some perfect moment of moral clarity. It just slipped out like something tired of being held. It was late. Almost 1 a.m. Ellis was on the sofa, one sock on, flipping through some dystopian drama on mute. I stood in the doorway for a full minute before speaking. I need to tell you something. He looked at me, not startled, not even curious, Just ready. I sat on the arm of the sofa. My hands were shaking. I didn't try to hide it. There's no elegant way to confess emotional infidelity. No poetic phrasing that makes it less cruel. I've been seeing Aurelian, I said. More than I said I was. Ellis blinked slowly. His face didn't change. I broke the rules, I added. Overnights. Feelings. All of it. Still nothing. I didn't mean to fall for him, I said. I thought he was just a distraction. A way to save what we had. The words felt like pulling teeth out of my chest. He finally turned the TV off. The screen went black, and his reflection stared back at us both. I know, he said. 3 words. Quiet. Final. I think I stopped breathing. You knew. He nodded. You stopped updating the calendar. You got distant in this really specific way, like you were trying to protect me from yourself. That's how I knew it wasn't just sex. I stared at him. Why didn't you say anything? He looked at me then, and what I saw wasn't anger. It was something worse. Grief wearing the mask of resignation. Because, he said, I was hoping you'd fall back in love with me, not away from me. My mouth went dry. He stood gently, like something inside him might break if he moved too fast. He didn't touch me, didn't reach for me, just walked past into the bedroom. I followed him, watched him open the closet. He didn't pack. He didn't shout. He just stood there, hand on the fabric of a shirt he hadn't worn since New Year's. I wanted this to fix us, he said. I thought maybe a little freedom would bring us back. He let out a soft laugh. Turns out you don't come back from some places. My knees buckled, but I stayed standing. Barely. I still love you, I whispered. He looked over his shoulder, eyes rimmed red but dry. And that's the worst part, he said. So do I. But I knew we could not go on. There were no slammed doors, no shouted accusations, no late-night pleading or stormy goodbyes. Ellis and I ended the way some people begin, quietly. He took the afternoon off work and packed with precision. Half the books, a few framed photos, his grandmother's quilt. I folded a hoodie he'd left on the back of the chair and handed it to him. Our fingers touched for a second too long. Neither of us flinched. He didn't ask me to stay. I didn't ask him to fight. We were like 2 men disassembling a life we'd built with IKEA tools and old love, taking it apart piece by piece. Screws in one Ziploc bag, memories in another. I asked if he wanted the Le Creuset pot. He laughed softly, said, You always used it more than I did. That's the closest we got to affection that day. When he left, the silence he took with him was louder than the door shutting. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not then. I sat on the sofa, our sofa, my sofa now, and stared at the space where his keys used to sit in the bowl. It was terrifying how fast someone could become a memory. 3 days later, Aurelian came over with Thai food and a bottle of red we wouldn't finish. He moved through my space like he'd always belonged in it. He kissed me softly and said, You don't have to be alone. And for a moment I considered saying yes. Yes to him. Yes to this new thing. Yes to whatever version of myself he saw when he looked at me like I was some kind of soft miracle. But instead I pulled back. I can't. I told him, voice small but steady. His face flickered, hurt, then confusion, then a quiet kind of understanding. I'm not saying no forever, I said. I need to learn who I am when I'm not busy trying to hold things together. When I'm not trying to fix what already broke. He nodded slowly. I'll wait if you want me to. I smiled. A real one, tired and sad, but honest. I don't want you to wait, I whispered. I want you to live. And if we meet again, maybe I'll be someone worth meeting. We stood there in the kitchen, neither of us knowing what to say next. Eventually, he left too. That night, I lay in bed alone. No body beside me. No calendar. No lies. Just me. And the quiet hum of starting over. It's been a year. Spring again. Soft rains and green buds on the trees outside my flat. The city smells like new beginnings and damp concrete. I walk slower now. I sleep through the night. I make dinner for one and light a candle anyway. I saw Ellis last week. At the farmer's market of all places. He was holding hands with someone tall and freckled, laughing like nothing had ever broken him. He spotted me. Our eyes met. And to my surprise, we both smiled. We talked for a bit. Casual, warm, cautious. Like people who knew each other too well and not at all. "He's good to me," Ellis said, nodding toward the man waiting by the bread stall. "I'm glad," I said, and I meant it. I was wearing the sweater Ellis once bought me for Christmas. Navy blue, worn at the cuffs. He didn't mention it, but his eyes lingered for a second longer than necessary. That was enough. When we said goodbye, he touched my shoulder. Familiar, gentle, not possessive, just kind. Later, back in my flat, I opened the window and let the breeze in. I stood in my kitchen, alone, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel lonely. I still see Aurelian sometimes through Instagram stories, tagged at galleries and rooftop bars. We don't talk, but once on my birthday he sent a message. "I hope you're still laughing like you used to. You were always most beautiful when you did." I didn't reply, but I smiled for the rest of the day. I've dated here and there. No one serious. No declarations. No calendars. Just quiet moments. A new kind of love for solitude, for my body, for the man I am without someone beside me. I thought love had to be forever to count, but it doesn't. What Ellis and I had, it was real. It shaped me. It broke me in the ways I needed to grow. And it ended. That doesn't make it a failure. It was love. Still. And that's enough.